Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. Even if you're relatively unfamiliar with psychology, chances are you've heard of cognitive behavioral therapy, commonly known as CBT. My name is Donna Edwards. I am a certified addiction treatment specialist, number 4. It is an extremely common type of talk therapy practiced around the world. If you've ever interacted with a mental health therapist, a counselor, or a psychiatry clinician in a professional setting, it's likely you've participated in CBT. If you've ever heard of friends or loved ones talk about how a mental health professional helped them identify unhelpful thoughts and patterns and behavior and alter them to a more effectively way to work towards their goals, you've heard about the impacts of CBT. CBT is one of the most frequently used tools in the psychologist toolbox. Though it's based on simple principles, it can have widely positive outcomes when it's put into practice. We will be discussing in this presentation, exploring what CBT is, how it works, and how you can apply its principles to improve your own life or the lives of your clients. My name is Donna Edwards. I am the CEO of Destiny Treatment Center. We are located on 5230 Clark Avenue, Suite 31. You can reach us at destinytreatmentcenter@gmail.com. You can contact us at area code 424-342-1403. We are an intensive outpatient treatment program. We provide assessments, treatment planning, individual counseling, educational and process groups, and online meetings are available. Let's explore what CBT is, how it works, and how you can apply its principles to improve your own life. Rigid beliefs about life stem from persistent, irrational demands about ourselves, others, and the world. These beliefs, also known as demand thinking, are predominantly communicated in absolutist language, including words like must and should, and characterized by awfulizing, being unable to tolerate discomfort, and devaluing our own competency. Examples of rigid beliefs include statements like, I must succeed or else, I'm a failure, other people should respect me, and things ought to be as I want them to be, or I cannot cope. These rigid beliefs and demands about life are not necessarily consistent with reality and can create a myriad of problems. Indeed, this dogmatic way of thinking may increase stress, remuneration, and anxiety. It can also create conflict and resentment towards others, and it is linked to difficulty recovering from a stressful event. Conversely, flexible beliefs come from an awareness that many things in life are out of our control and are characterized by non-awfulizing, discomfort tolerance, and unconditional acceptance. Flexible beliefs about life can help individuals adapt and cope with their internal and external stressors, improve tolerance of uncertainty, increase belief in their competency, and benefit well-being. Unfortunately, with practice, people can learn, fortunately, with practice, people can learn to detect rigid beliefs and integrate flexible alternatives in their practice. To become less rigid in their beliefs about life, individuals can replace demands with flexible preferences that set more realistic expectations for themselves and others. Simply put, rather than thinking about what must or should happen, we can think about what we would prefer to happen. To give an example, the rigid belief, I must be successful and respected, can be substituted with a preference that is flexible, realistic, and logical. For instance, I would prefer to do well and for people to respect me, but I can tolerate it if that does not happen. I am still the same person either way. So this exercise will help clients identify absolutist, rigid beliefs and replace demand thinking with flexible preferences. The goal of this exercise is to help clients recognize rigid demand thinking and replace it with more a flexible preference of thinking. In doing so, clients can learn to substitute absolute automatic thoughts with rational alternatives and disengaging from unrealistic expectations directed at the self and others. Rewriting rigid beliefs about life will not happen overnight. The clients should be encouraged to repeat the exercise whenever they notice they are using demand language that includes should or must statements. With practice, identifying and challenging rigid beliefs about life will become easier. Here are some examples of rigid beliefs and flexible alternatives which can be found. It is normal to use words like must, should, and ought in certain circumstances, but this way of thinking should be addressed when it puts unreasonable pressure on clients who set unrealistic standards concerning things they can't control. Rigid beliefs come from demands and expectations that you impose on yourself, others, and the world around you. These beliefs tend to be automatic and you may not even be aware that you have them. So, what do rigid beliefs look like? Do you find yourself using the words like should, ought, or must when thinking about yourself, others, and your circumstances? For example, I must be successful and respected. Others should be kind and respectful towards me. Or everyone should be equal and treated fairly. These are examples of rigid beliefs. To make demands and set unrealistic standards for things that cannot be controlled. Sometimes it can be helpful to think about the things you should and should not do. For example, I should not drink alcohol and drive my car home. It is a very helpful and healthy way to think. However, these shoulds and musts can also put pressure on you and others to meet certain expectations and then leave you feeling frustrated when those expectations are not met. Fortunately, you can rewrite these rigid beliefs about life so that they are more flexible and allow you to express what you would like while acknowledging the reality that you may not get it. This exercise will help you think about your preferences rather than making rigid demands. In doing so, you can move away from unrealistic imposed expectations and cultivate more flexible beliefs about living. The first step towards forming flexible beliefs is to identify your rigid belief about life. Rigid beliefs tend to come from demands and expectations you have about yourself and others. They focus on a way you think should be and include words like must, never, should, ought to, cannot, and should not. For example, I must achieve perfect results. I should be successful. Other people should show me respect. People ought to know better. I must be liked by everyone I meet. Other people should see things from my point of view. Life should not be difficult or frustrating. Let's take some time to think about a belief you have that comes from demands or expectations about yourself, others, or the world around you. Write these rigid beliefs down. Before you formulate a more flexible alternative, you will first reflect on your rigid belief. Let's take a few moments to think about the rigid belief described in the previous step and repeat it silently to yourself so it is clear in your mind. Now, let's answer the following questions. How does this rigid belief make you feel? What demands are you making that you have no control over? In what ways does this belief set unrealistic expectations for yourself or others? This step is about creating a new flexible belief to replace the rigid beliefs detailed before. To do this, you will think about how you might change demands into flexible preferences. Thinking about what you would prefer rather than making demands allows you to move away from unrealistic expectations. Instead of thinking about what must or should happen, think about what you would prefer to happen. Let's use the example. I should be successful and other people should respect me, to a more flexible alternative that considers your preferences and desires rather than demands. What would be, I would prefer to be successful and respected, but no one is perfect. So how would you prefer things to be in this situation? I would prefer, I would like. Let's write it down. Now that you have considered less rigid alternatives, it is time for you to reflect upon them. Take a moment to think about the new flexible belief detailed from the previous step and ask yourself the following questions. How does this flexible belief make you feel? In what ways does this belief set more realistic expectations for yourself or others? How does this belief give you more control in this situation? Step 5, the general reflection. How was it to complete this exercise? What is the most valuable insight you gained from this exercise? How did it feel to think about things in terms of preferences rather than demands? How did it feel to set more realistic expectations for yourself or others? In what ways has this exercise changed the way you think about yourself, others, and the world around you? Let's take a look at some rigid beliefs and flexible alternatives. A rigid belief is I must pass this exam. If I don't, I'm a failure, and it would be awful. A flexible alternative would be I would like to pass this exam, but if I don't, I'm a failure. I'm not a failure. I made a mistake just like everyone else. So you take the time to read the rest of these rigid beliefs and the flexible alternatives. These are just some examples.